Welcome to Table for 92. Element number 9, fluorine. It's number 9 because it has exactly 9 protons in its nucleus. Fluorine shows up naturally in tea, coffee, shellfish, grapes, and potatoes, and many more foods. So we're hitting 2 of those with mussels and fries. Fluorine itself is not essential for human nutrition, but is extremely important for dental health in preventing cavities. But I'll talk more about that later because it's absolutely fascinating. So we're gonna cook up some white wine garlic mussels with shoestring French fries. I used to live in Colorado, and there was this restaurant, well, it's now closed, but this awesome French restaurant called Le Central. They just had the best mussels and these endless shoestring fries to go with it. And it was like 15 bucks, man, I missed that place. First, I'll start with the shoestring fries, 3 large russet potatoes, and I'll put them in cold water for about 30 minutes to remove the starch. Then I'll drain them, pat them dry with a paper towel, cook them in peanut oil at 375, cooking in batches so not to overcrowd the pot. Fluorine is one of the rare elements that is actually named after a mineral in which fluorine is found, fluorite, which is super abundant and absolutely beautiful. It's CaF2. There's fluorine, the element, fluoride, the compound, and fluorite, the mineral. But all the names, it comes from the Latin fluere, meaning to flow. It's actually a pretty good story from antiquity. Agricola, who lived in the 1500s and is known as the father of mineralogy, wrote in his book, Bermanus, that miners and metallurgists nicknamed this mineral because it melts so easily in a furnace and would be added during smelting to make whatever they were melting more fluid. So, fluere. But you gotta be real careful with that because fluorite will often occur with calcium fluoride, and when that heats up and interacts with water, it creates poison gas in the form of hydrogen fluoride. Fluorine is the most reactive of all the elements and is the lightest member of the halogen group. It literally combines more than any other element on the periodic table. Fluorine gets around. No judgment, but it gets around. So yeah, a smelter in the Middle Ages would have had a pretty short life expectancy. Well, really everybody had a pretty short life expectancy back then anyway, but the miners definitely would have had a hard time. The key difference between fluorine and fluoride is that fluorine is neutral, whereas fluoride is negatively charged. Fluoride is a chemical compound that is created from the salts that form when fluorine combines with minerals in soil and rocks. Fluorine, gets around. Like so many scientific discoveries, it would take several scientists over many years to isolate the actual elements. Fluorine was initially discovered by the Swedish pharmacist and chemist Carl Wilhelm Scheele in 1771, but it took another 115 years until the French pharmacist and chemist Henri Moissan isolated it in 1886. And in 1906, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Chemistry for his work. For a long time, fluorine salts, fluorides, were used in welding and for frosting glass. In fact, fluorine is used in many fluorochemicals, including solvents and high-temperature plastics, such as Teflon. It's also used for cable insulation, plumber's tape, and the basis of Gore-Tex, used in the waterproofing shoes and clothing and stuff. So, when cooking mussels, always make sure your mussels are cleaned on the outside beforehand. Take off the beards, melt half a stick of butter with some olive oil, add chopped shallots, and cook until translucent. Then I'm gonna throw in some minced garlic until that's fragrant, then 2 cups of white wine, and finally the mussels. Cover that, let steam for 5 to 10 minutes, or until all of the mussel shells have opened. Also, fluorocarbons, fluorine and carbon, known as PFCs, were used in refrigerants like aerosols and hairspray, but they were really destructive to the ozone layer of our atmosphere. And when that was discovered, guess what? Governments around the world got together to ban them, and now our ozone layer has recovered significantly. Imagine that. That was all happening when I was a kid. Unbelievable, right? People's teeth have been pretty much gross for most of human history, especially after we all switched from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and started farming about 13,000 years ago. Farming is great. It provides humans with consistent grains, but they're almost always high in sugar, and that's gonna ruin teeth over time. It actually affected the shape of our mouths. It's very different from hunter-gatherers than today. Hunter-gatherers' diets had a lot of hard, raw foods, and it made their jaws much larger than today. Nowadays, with our agricultural society, where we're used to eating much softer foods from an early age, our jaws are smaller than they used to be. So this is the reason we have so many issues with crowding in teeth today. There's a great Smithsonian article I'll put in the comments about this. It's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, so fluoride, the compound, is naturally found in drinking water already. Some places higher, some places lower. But in the early 1900s, when large public health studies were first made, they found that these communities that had higher concentrations of fluoride in their drinking water had much lower instances of tooth decay. That led to communities to start adding fluoride to drinking water in about the 1940s. But there's, evidence too that too much fluoride in the water can have detrimental effects during child development. But it does not cause frogs to become gay or a way for the government to control your mind. God, I can't even believe that's worth mentioning. Harvard University has a great article about fluoride in water that is just fascinating. I really suggest you read it, and definitely read the letters back to the editor. I'll put the link below. The article shows that countries that had put fluoride in drinking water and those that did not have all seen a huge decrease in cavities since then. So, we may not need fluoridated water anymore since most of our toothpastes have fluoride in them anyway, and we have much better access to dental care than back in the day. So, as long as you brush your teeth, you'll be much better off than our ancestors that didn't have access to such luxuries. I mean, how else did I end up with this beautiful smile? This is all such a good combination. And oh yeah, always gotta have good French bread to soak up that broth with. That might be the best part about this meal. Thank you. See you next time.